Hey everybody, welcome to the BizSTL podcast. I'm your host, Mike Miller. The BizSTL podcast is where we meet with leaders from around St. Louis to learn more about how they built their businesses, what they see for the future of St. Louis's business scene, and how some of their greatest lessons just might serve as learning opportunities for your own career. This episode of the BizSTL podcast is presented by Royal Banks of Missouri. Starting a business can be really hard, but scaling it can be one of the biggest challenges of all for entrepreneurs in virtually every industry. The good news is there is help available out there, including right here in St. Louis. At UMSL, that's the University of Missouri St. Louis, Dr. Scott Morris is leading one of the region's most interesting and impressive resource centers for entrepreneurs. Scott is the executive director of UMSL's Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, which offers a variety of programs and initiatives to help support startup founders and build a bigger, better, and more cohesive business ecosystem in St. Louis. On today's episode, we talk about some of the work taking place there, including UMSL's Anchor Accelerator program, as well as some of the ways St. Louis does a great job of supporting entrepreneurs, and some of the ways we could do better. All that and more on this episode of the BizSTL podcast. Hang tight, we'll be right back. For 60 years, Royal Banks of Missouri has been proud to be your local community bank. Royal Bank's treasury management specialists understand the opportunities and challenges facing today's business leaders. Their team provides exceptional service and personalized solutions designed to help set your business up for success. Contact Royal Banks by calling 314-212-1500 or visit royalbanksofmo.com to learn more about their business banking options. Royal Banks of Missouri, member FDIC and equal housing lender. Welcome back, everybody. Today's guest is Dr. Scott Morris, Executive Director of UMSL's Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. The school is doing some really great, important, and interesting work for the local business community and supporting a bunch of great local entrepreneurs. Scott, it's really a pleasure to have you in here today. Thanks for coming.
Likewise. Nice to meet you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot I would love to touch on today about all the work that's happening over at UMSL right now. But before we get started, before we dive in, I'd like to ask all of our guests a series of rapid-fire questions just to get to know you just a little bit better. Sound good?
All right, let's go.
Awesome. Well, one thing I'm always curious when I talk to some of these local business leaders is how they start their day. How do you start your day? How do you get your mind working, get your mind turned on?
First step is coffee. It's got to be coffee. I like to go outside, get some of the fresh daylight, fresh air, and a great way to start the day.
How about a favorite life hack? Is there anything you do to maybe make things just a little bit easier for yourself as the day wears on?
There's nothing profound. It is all about my Outlook calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it's not happening. So it's got to go on the calendar.
I feel that exactly. Yeah, it's not like you said, it's not happening if it's not on my calendar.
Right.
Either. How about a favorite book? Is there anything? It could be business related. It could be just a book you've read for pleasure. Is there any book that is a go-to for you?
Now you're speaking my language. This is my absolute hobby, and it informed a lot of my life decisions over the last decade or so. Is all about reading, and I really am into kind of deep purpose, second half of life, mindfulness, meaning, how to make things more meaningful.
Is there one that comes to mind that has been special, especially impactful for the way you sort of view life and the things that you do?
Yeah, my favorite of late is Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. So he's a happiness guru, and so that plays a big role in kind of why I'm at UMSL right now.
That's awesome. How about a favorite podcast? Do you listen to many?
I do. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like to run, so I'm always listening to podcasts as I run. So I listen to everything. I love the baseball podcasts, so, especially right now with all the trade rumors and things like that. That's a lot of fun. The one I'm really into these days is Acquired. So I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's the average episode is a couple hours long, and it's just fascinating talking about all these great businesses and how they got their start, how they're succeeding, and highly recommend that one.
That sounds awesome. I'll check that one out for sure.
Yeah.
And how about a favorite restaurant in St. Louis? Is there anywhere that you like to go? Maybe if you have someone in from out of town, you got to take them to this place.
So many good ones. We love The Crossing. That's a great one. We're our anniversary is coming up. We're going to Paul Mano's. That's a favorite. Nice. Yeah. So a lot of the Italian restaurants in town are fantastic. We discovered Viscia about a year ago. That's a fantastic place too.
It's one of my favorites too. I think that was one of the first restaurants I went to when I moved to St. Louis a few years ago. It's definitely a hit in our house for sure. Well, that's great. There's a lot of really cool work happening at UMSL. But before we get into all the stuff that's happening over there, Scott, I want to stick with you for just a moment. You have a really interesting background yourself. You're enjoying a second career of sorts, I guess you could say even. You've been in many roles over the course of your career, had a hand in everything from strategy and development to mergers, sales. You've done B2B, B2C. I think you've done a lot. Um, you go back to school, you pursue a doctorate, now you're working in academia. Can you just sort of explain your path and maybe how the breadth of those experiences have really just shaped the way you view and do your work now in support of students and small businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. And I could tell you a story that makes it sound like my career was very well planned out and that one thing just built upon the other. Nothing could be further from the truth. It was just all pure dumb luck.
Yeah.
And it started out, I really just wanted to do something unique and different. So when I left undergrad, I moved to New York City. I worked for a Japanese company. And this is pre-internet, pre-laptop, our big technology was faxing.
Yeah.
And so I got to travel the world as a 20-something-year-old. They sent me all over the world to start up new businesses, work with our local offices to develop businesses and really find ways to grow just by putting these unique relationships together. So you fast forward a little bit, I meet my wife, we move out of New York City and end up in Indianapolis. I was pursuing my MBA at Kelly, which is Indiana University. And as I started the interview process at the end of my MBA, I was getting a lot of interest from these private equity owned businesses. And what they liked was my transactional background. So I never thought of myself as kind of an M&A guy. We were just putting together business relationships, but it involved a lot of those same skills that you would use for mergers and acquisitions and how to identify the right target, how to get a deal done. Creative problem solving was really all it was. And so I took some interviews and ended up moving to St. Louis, working for a business called Spectrum Brands that was owned by Thomas H. Lee at the time. And Thomas H. Lee is one of the godfathers of private equity. So what I didn't know, from my days in New York, the PE guys and the folks at Spectrum Brands taught me. And so it kind of got me into this corporate development role. And I really developed a taste for private equity. I really liked the fact that it was very fast paced. It was all about growth, just a ton of strategy. And you got to see hundreds of businesses as we were looking for acquisition candidates. You'd meet with, dozens of owners at a time, trying to find that right one. So we learned a lot about the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, and how to fix things. So that really kind of put me on that path corporately to pursue these corporate development type roles, work for companies that wanted some kind of transformation. They were at a place, maybe they were stuck, maybe it was a new acquisition for a private equity owner, but they wanted to get to a new level. And so that's when I would come in.
That's so fascinating. And what made you want to pursue a PhD at that stage too?
Yeah, so great question. About the time that we moved here, I got involved with a men's group, and we were studying a book called Halftime. It was written by a guy named Bob Buford, who's this multi-billionaire. And the book wasn't all that great, but they had some very profound points. One of the points was he recommended that you have two careers. One is focused on success. The other is on significance. And so I don't remember how old I was. I was in my early, maybe mid 30s, maybe 40. And that just really stuck with me that I wanted to do that. The second I read that, I'm like, I knew that's what I wanted to do is I wanted to have two careers, one focused on success. And when you work for private equity, you do feel a bit like a hired gun, so you're just moving from company to company, kind of running the same playbook. And I wanted something significant. And so that really resonated with me. And so I my friends always joke with me, like, you've been talking about this for 20 years. I can't believe you actually did it. And so I got some great advice. I met a guy, actually a high school friend of mine introduced me to someone that worked at UMSL. He works in the private sector, but he teaches some classes, and he gave me some advice. He said, Scott, if you want to really do this, don't be a guy that's going to stand up in front of a classroom and tell war stories. Be somebody who can really have an impact on these students. Go back and get your degree, really take this seriously, do some research and make this your craft. And so he's the one that encouraged me to check out DBA programs. So the Doctorate of Business Administration. And so that's what I did at UMSL. But this was a plan that had been hatched 20 years prior.
That's amazing. Well, it feels like UMSL has the perfect guy for this role, a guy with such a varied toolbox and such diverse experiences. It's really cool just to sort of see how that has all evolved over the course of the last few decades for you.
It's divine intervention, man. That's all I can say. It's just right place, right time, and it happened to me time and again throughout my career.
Well, you've been a busy guy, and it's seemingly been a busy year for you at UMSL over the last few months with the launch of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. I was wondering, can you just sort of walk me through the mission of that program and all that you guys are hoping to accomplish for not only students, but entrepreneurs and really the local business scene as a whole?
Yeah, it's a program that started, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and it's really started to gain momentum. So it was previously called the DEI Accelerator. We've always had the historically underrepresented founders in mind with the program. Very consistent with the UMSL brand. Certainly we appeal to all different kinds of students, but if you just look at where we're located and we're an anchor institution, there's a lot of diversity in the area of North County where we sit. And so that's part of our passion. The other thing, UMSL has a tagline of "We transform lives." So we try to do that not just for our students, but also for our community. And so what better way than to have an impact on these small businesses as they're trying to get a start? And so we had this accelerator that had been going for a while. I stepped into the role in October of last year. We had our fourth accelerator that December. And so we awarded another 5 founders with a grant. So they each got $50,000. They each got a mentor. We give them student interns, and then we put them through an 8-week curriculum. So with that 5, we've now put 22 local businesses through the program, given away $1.1 million, created all kinds of jobs, all kinds of revenue growth and try to be part of the founders' lives as they need us going forward.
That's incredible, and that's a real impact. Like you said, you're just able to put those numbers to it. That shows just the kind of impact you're having on small business, on entrepreneurs here in St. Louis. What are some of the unique aspects of that accelerator program? I mean, how are you maybe reaching some of these entrepreneurs and helping them really get to that point where they're getting to scale and growing and doing so in meaningful ways?
Yeah, well, and that's my background, right, is helping businesses scale. So I'm working typically at a larger scale. It's typically businesses that might be generating 100, 250 million in revenue, but they want to do something significant. They want to get to $1 billion and then sell. And so this is just that same practice on a little bit smaller scale with these smaller business owners. And, the great thing about the program, St. Louis has so many startups, so many small businesses. We've had, in the 4 years that we've run this version of the accelerator, we've had almost 2,000 applicants. Of the 2,000, 1,100 were unique. So, some people apply multiple years. There's 1,100 unique applicants. So on the one hand, while we've had such great impact with these 22 winners, we've also turned away
Right.
1,078 folks that one could argue might need our help even more. And so as we've started to kind of look around, we've said the ecosystem in St. Louis is really good. There's a lot of great programming, and we've tried to find gaps. And another example of, just divine intervention, my background matches up perfectly with some of the gaps that exist in St. Louis, which is this scaling phase, this rapid growth phase. We're beyond proof of concept. We're generating some revenue. And now we need to hire a real CFO, hire a real head of sales. We need to go take a loan or bring in investment dollars to really get to that next level. And so we're trying to plug that gap within the ecosystem.
That's really interesting. And one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on this podcast is because you have such an interesting perspective on the local business scene. And I wanted to get your take on a topic that sort of just touched on. What are some other support mechanisms for small business here that maybe do a good job of
Yeah.
helping young companies grow? What are we doing well here in St. Louis to support some of these?
There's
these
a
early
couple
stages?
great groups that are out there that are mapping the ecosystem. So there's Holistic Services, that's Tori Gonzalez, and then Emily Hemingway at Tech STL is putting together a map. And so they've got a list of all these great resources. What we like to, like I say, we like to plug into that gap. So we particularly think that Square One and Cortex are doing a great job with these startups that I have an idea. I don't quite know how to get my idea into practice, and I don't quite know how to get it from my head to execution. So there's a lot of great workshops, boot camps, but we love Square One. We love the folks at Cortex that work on that program, and then we love to try to graduate our founders to an organization like Entrepreneurs Organization, so EO. They can take the baton, and I think if the St. Louis community can get together and we just kind of pass the founders through the ecosystem that's already there, it's going to be much more productive, just help people find the right resources that they need. And we're all competing for the same grant dollars. We're going to the same businesses to try to support the programs that we have. And, we can be much more efficient for them too. They can figure out the donors, and the folks that are willing to give money can figure out where they fit best in the ecosystem. So I love the collaboration that's going on, but those are two that we love to kind of recommend on the front end and the back end.
Yeah. I think you sort of touched on it right there too. I was going to ask you, how can we be better as a region as well? I mean, are there things that we could be doing that we're not already, or are there things we could do to better support entrepreneurs and their companies?
Yeah, I honestly, I think St. Louis does a really, really good job. There's some great businesses, big businesses, Edward Jones, Worldwide Technology, AB, Ameren. There's a lot of local businesses that really want to give back and really have a heart for what we're trying to do. And I think, again, they have limited people that can review these opportunities. So if we're all going to them,
Yeah.
if all of us in the ecosystem are going to them asking for dollars, if we can have a comprehensive plan and really work together in the way that like Tori and Emily are asking us to, I think that'll just be more effective for the region, and we can start to accelerate things a little bit faster for the local founders.
I want to go back to UMSL and the work you're doing there. I'm willing to bet there've been some pretty interesting takeaways for you in this the first year leading this program. What have been some of the lessons you've learned, and I guess how do you maybe apply them to the next few years?
Yeah, I can't believe how sophisticated our local founders are. They really know a lot more. It's more than just a passion for an idea. They really understand kind of what they're trying to do, how to build a business. We just need to provide resources to them to help them do that faster or make introductions for them. So that's one of the great things about UMSL is we have a long list of alumni. We have faculty. We have all these different connections that we can leverage to help get them the information or make the introductions that they need. But oftentimes they kind of know what they're looking for. They just don't have the hands and the feet to go do it. And so it's a very, very sophisticated group of local founders that we have in St. Louis.
That's great. And I guess as you look into this, we're on the verge of a new school year here in 24-25. What's new? What's on tap for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center? What are you guys working on this year? What can folks expect as they get into new future cohorts as well?
Yeah. So we'll do a recall back to my 1,078 that we've disappointed. We've had the 22 winners and we've disappointed 1,078 unique applicants. So we've decided that the program is established. It's been proven. It's working. We're now going to open it up so that anybody in the community, not just the folks that win the competition, anyone in the community that wants to take the courses can come to campus and take the courses. So that's a new program that will be starting this fall.
It's huge.
Yeah, enrollment's just now open. Just last week, we just started promoting the enrollment. So classes start in September, and it's broken into 5 modules. So we break it into 5 modules. The modules will meet over a 2-week period. They'll meet twice for about 3.5 hours each time. So 7 hours per module. And we want to meet, kind of give some information, give some training, let them do some work, and then come back and check the work and assess and kind of move them along. So one of the other parts of the program that we think is very effective is pairing the founder with a mentor. And it depends on enrollment. I can't guarantee that we can pair one founder to one mentor, but we can at least have mentor work groups where the mentors will help the local founders, complete that part of the assignment for their module, as they go throughout it. So we'll expand their network because they'll meet a mentor. They can help with the work that we're assigning to them, but also introduce them and maybe problem solve a little bit on some of their unique needs.
How do you guys identify the mentors?
Yeah, so we're going to break it up. Typically, the way it's worked in the past is as we talk to the winners, We find out what their unique problem is, and we try to match them up with a mentor that we think is an expert in that area, a subject matter expert, whether it's an industry, whether it's we had, my favorite example is we had Pat Upchurch from Patty's Cheesecake. She was talking about, boy, my biggest problem is just utilization of my footprint. I have all this demand and I have limited space in my current footprint. I don't know how to get more productivity except to buy another space.
Right.
And so we paired her up with a person that's deep in manufacturing, like steel, heavy industry, steel, that kind of stuff. But they came up with a plan, and she's got, I don't remember if it's 300 or 400% productivity improvement. So, we're trying to solve the problems that are there that the founders are wrestling with a local expert. And so that's one of the examples. The new group, it may be based on a problem, a type of problem, or it may be an industry work group. We'll just kind of have to see how it plays out depending on who enrolls.
Is this something where you guys have mentors identified, or do you take volunteers? If someone were listening to this and wanted to help you guys out with maybe a specific problem, specific industry, do you solicit volunteers as well?
We absolutely want volunteers. We need guest speakers. We need mentors. We need adjuncts. We need lots of resources. We have a long list of people that want to help out. So we do have a database that we can tap into that are, folks that are readily available, but we're always looking for more.
That's great. And I love the anecdote about Patty's Cheesecakes. That's a really cool connection to make between two industries that maybe you wouldn't think are, going hand in hand, but certainly some impactful work probably came out of that as well.
She definitely had a few comments when I told her who our mentor was. Yeah.
You're right. Oh, awesome. Scott, this has been really cool, really insightful stuff. And you guys are doing some great work, some really impactful, meaningful work over there at UMSL. So it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for coming by today.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
That'll do it for this episode of the BizSTL podcast. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your friends, family, and colleagues. Stay connected with us by subscribing to our BizSTL leadership newsletter at stlmag.com/newsletters and follow along on Instagram at St. Louis Mag. If you loved what you heard, show us some love by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you choose to listen. We appreciate your support and can't wait to have you join us again. Until next time, I'm Mike Miller.